Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. And today I'm going to do my review of Monday Night Raw. Starting off the night, we have Jey Uso coming out to the ring, grabs a microphone. Jey quickly calls out Logan Paul, but he's interrupted by Paul Heyman. Jey says that Heyman got a lot of nerve to show up last night after what he did to Roman Reigns. Heyman then talks about Punk. Crowd chants CM Punk. Heyman says that he built the bloodline in 5 years. Heyman says that Roman blew it at WrestleMania 40. Heyman says that he was right about Roman. Heyman then mocks the crowd. Jey then asks Heyman, "Are you okay?" Heyman tells Jey he doesn't know how to be champion. Heyman then says Rollins challenges Jey for the world title, but he gives Jey the opportunity to pick the time and place for that title match. And Jey says, well, let's make the match happen tonight. So it looks like we will have Jey Uso taking on Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of the night. It's JD McDonough taking on Penta. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between JD and Penta, with JD keeping the pace of the match. JD then hits a Death Valley driver off the apron on Penta, followed by a Spanish fly off the top rope. Carlito then attacks Penta. Finn then attacks Penta as well. Referee then throws out Finn and Carlito. Chad Gable then goes after Penta, but Penta hits a Mexican Destroyer in the middle of the ring, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Penta. Hats off to Penta for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have Austin Theory taking on pretty much an opponent he doesn't know who it's going to be, but that opponent is none other than the return of Sheamus. Sheamus finally returns to WWE. The match itself was a decent match. Back and forth matchup between Theory and Sheamus, with Sheamus keeping the pace of the match. Sheamus then applies a clover leaf on Austin Theory in the middle of the ring, but the hold is broken. Theory then hits a rolling blockbuster on Sheamus for a near fall. Sheamus then gets up, hits a white noise off the middle rope on Theory, followed by a bro kick, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Sheamus. Hats off to Sheamus for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. She talks about taking out Bayley. Becky says that Bayley is garbage. She also says Lyra Valkyria is garbage. After that, she's interrupted by Lyra Valkyria. Lyra then mocks Becky. Lyra says that while Becky has been gone, she became a champion. Becky says that she is the greatest to ever do it, and that even Sports Illustrated says that Becky is the best that ever do it. Lyra says as long as she's here, Becky will always be second. After that, Lyra and Becky then both fight in the middle of the ring, and they are separated by WWE security. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. Io Sky taking on Roxanne Perez. I thought this was a really good match. Back and forth matchup between Sky and Perez, with Io Sky keeping the pace of the match. Roxanne hits a Hurricane Rana on Sky, but Sky hits a roll-up on Roxanne Perez, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match is Io Sky. After the match, Roxanne then goes to shake Io's hand. She leaves the ring, but all of a sudden, Io is attacked by Julia. Roxanne then runs back in the ring, and she attacks Io as well. Some interesting stuff there between Perez and Julia after the past couple weeks on Raw. Moving on from that, we have Rusev having his first official match on Raw since he's been back, taking on Otis. I thought it was a good match. Back and forth matchup between Rusev and Otis, with Rusev keeping the pace of the match. Rusev hits a heel kick on Otis, followed by Rusev applying an accolade on Otis in the middle of the ring. Otis taps out, and your winner of the match is Rusev. After the match, Rusev then attacks Tozawa. Moving on from that, we have Pat McAfee. He is greeted in the ring by Adam Pearce. Pat grabs a microphone. They bring Gunther out to the ring. Gunther says that he won't attack Pat McAfee, that he wants to keep it professional. Pat then praises Michael Cole. Pat says that Cole has been in the company for 28 years. Pat then praises Nebraska. Pat says that WWE has always been a dream for him even since he was a kid. Pat says that Gunther doesn't even want it anymore. Pat says that Gunther is soft. Gunther then grabs the microphone and says that he is coming to Backlash fully prepared to pretty much dismantle Pat McAfee. Definitely looking forward to that match at Backlash between Pat McAfee and Gunther. Moving on from that, we got the main event of Raw. It is Jey Uso defending the World Heavyweight title against Seth Rollins. I thought it was a good match. Actually, a great match. Back and forth match between Jey and Seth. Jey and Rollins both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Rollins keeping the pace of the match. Rollins has a pedigree on Jey for a near fall. Braun then attacks Jay. Rollins hits a foot stomp on Jay for a near fall. Zayn is here. Zayn then attacks Braun. Jay then hits a spear in the middle of the ring on Rollins, followed by an Uso splash for a near fall. Braun then hits a spear on Zayn ringside. Braun then hits a spear of his own on Jay, leaving him ringside. Rollins then hits a foot stomp on Jay. All of a sudden, CM Punk is here. Punk attacks Braun as well as Seth Rollins. The match ends up ending in a disqualification. And it looks like CM Punk has some unfinished business with Seth Rollins. A couple of things I want to quickly talk about, man, before I get the hell up out of here as far as Monday Night Raw is concerned. Do I like the show? Yeah, I think it was a decent show. I mean, for what it's worth, I think Raw and SmackDown as of late, especially SmackDown's kind of fallen flat for me a little bit. I don't think SmackDown needs to be 3 hours, to be honest. But I'll say this, man. Monday Night Raw and what they've been doing as far as the build-up and the lead towards Backlash has been great. I think the stuff that they're doing right now with Pat McAfee has been awesome. The promos that Pat has been cutting for the past 2 weeks, ever since this incident's happened with Gunther, has been great. People always say that, everybody's, generational talent. And Pat McAfee's not a talent. He's not an in-ring wrestler, but the guy's got talent, bro. When he grabs that microphone, it almost demands attention. And when he cut that promo in Nebraska on Raw last night, it got everybody's attention. This is a guy this is something that was a dream for Pat McAfee. And it's been, prevalently known. This was a dream for this guy to be a part of WWE. He's been a fan seemingly for a long time, since he was a kid. And now he has the opportunity to, be on commentary with, one of the greatest to ever do it, Michael Cole. Michael Cole's been there for almost 30 years. So, you could tell Pat's, definitely passionate about the business. Obviously he's good friends with Michael Cole. And, it's really setting the stage and setting the tone for this matchup between him and Gunther. And I've seen McAfee wrestle a couple times, and every time I see him wrestle, man, it's always something new that he brings out in his moveset that shocks the fans, whether it's a moonsault or a 450, something like that. Pat always, he always brings it every time he has a match within WWE. So I'm definitely looking forward to this matchup with him and Gunther at Backlash. And to be honest with you, I think it was one of the best parts of Monday Night Raw last night. Roxanne Perez and Julia, I like the dynamic of it. I think it's great that we have Roxanne Perez and Julia both attacking Rhea Ripley and Io Sky seemingly now for the past couple weeks. I like the fact that we have NXT talent pretty much involved on the main roster. I think it's great. Obviously it looks like they're setting up a tag team matchup here, possibly with Io teaming up with Rhea to take on Roxanne Perez and Julia, which I'm all for that if that happens. Looks like that possibly could take place maybe at Backlash. I don't know. Still yet to be seen. Backlash is this weekend. So we're going to see what happens. I also apologize in advance. I have been kind of under the weather for the past couple of days. Me and my wife have been kind of sick, have a cold and stuff like that. So I'm kind of battling the elements right now with, fever and stuffy nose and all that jazz. So it's not the greatest. So I do apologize for that. But like I said, man, it's one of those things where, you really got to look at the narrative of what they're trying to do here as far as Backlash. The build's been great. I think the build has been a little bit better than WrestleMania, to be honest with you. I think WrestleMania this year was a complete downfall. And I expressed my grievances on WrestleMania that we had this year. I just thought WrestleMania as a whole was shit, besides a triple threat match and maybe LA Knight and Jacob Fatu. I just thought WrestleMania this year fell flat on its ass. With that being said, we got the return of Sheamus, which is great. Sheamus has been out for a little while. Rusev had his debut match also last night against Otis. And if people were wondering where Rusev was going to be, how he was going to, play out in WWE, it looks like he's going to be a heel. So we're going to see what happens, man. I think, I saw, obviously Malachi Black debut or Aleister Black return and have his match against The Miz. And we see Rusev. We're going to see how it plays out, man, because, I don't know if it's the crowd for me that's not really getting me hyped about it, or it's not enough at this point. But it seems like not a lot of people give a shit about the return of Aleister Black or Rusev. That's just the vibe I'm getting. Obviously a lot of things have happened in WWE the past couple of weeks, or this past week alone, with the releases that happened. There was a lot of releases that have happened in WWE, which I do want to talk about with you guys, and those releases that have happened and my thoughts on it, where I think they're going to be going. There were some shocks as far as the releases. They're never fun. Dakota Kai was a big one for me. They just brought her back. She was in an Intercontinental Women's Tournament, and she was in the finals. She's faced Lyra Valkyria now, I think, twice. So I was kind of shocked and surprised they let go of Dakota now for the second time. So I was surprised by that. Braun Strowman, I mean, this is the second time that he's also been released. I was actually surprised by Strowman, bro, because you got to give Strowman a little bit of credit, man. He really put Jacob Fatu on the map. Those matches that Fatu has had with Strowman really put Fatu on the map. So I was a little shocked by Strowman being released. I know a lot of people were up in arms about Cora Jade being released as well. My thing is this, man. You know, before I tell you guys where I think these men and women are going to go, my issue is this. There's a lot of people that obviously have tribalism, and there's people that are pissed off with WWE, like, oh, I can't believe they did this. How can they do this? But you got to look at the narrative, man. I mean, some of these people, like Cora Jade or Gigi, like especially Gigi Dolan. Gigi Dolan's been with NXT for like 5 years, and she hasn't even been called up on the main roster yet. So clearly there's something they don't see in Gigi Dolan enough to bring her to the main roster. So, I mean, 5 years in NXT is a long time in NXT, especially with it being their developmental program. So clearly they didn't think Gigi was ready for the main roster. I'm not saying she's not a bad talent. I just think that, Sean and Hunter and the powers that be didn't really see her as a main roster talent within the 5 years of her being with NXT. So that's a problem number one. Two, obviously, from what I heard, obviously there was money issues and stuff like that for a lot of the reasons for these releases. And a lot of people are pointing the finger at Triple H and everything else like that. And Shayna Baszler being released, which was also a shock, but I could see it happening. You know what I mean? Because I feel like they really didn't know what to do with Shayna. But at the end of the day, man, this is a business. And there's some people that are like, oh, I can't believe this, and yada, yada, yada. And people are just acting crazy over this. At the end of the day, this is a business. It's 100% a business. And, for me personally as a fan, I want what's best for the talent. I want what's best for the shows, best for the talent. And right now, it's the best time right now for these talents that if they were released, there's multiple opportunities for them to seek employment, whether it's AEW, TNA, New Japan, Rev Pro, on the indies. You know what I mean? Indies right now are like red hot. So there's other opportunities for these men and women to seek employment somewhere else, because before it was a lot harder for these talents to go somewhere else if they got released from WWE. There really wasn't a lot of players in town that, besides the indies that were really accepting talent. There really was no AEW, 6 years ago. There was just TNA and WWE, to be honest. A lot of it was like also New Japan and stuff like that. So there really wasn't a lot of, places for these men and women to go. So now the fact that we have AEW, we have TNA, we got New Japan, we got the Indies, we got House of Glory, stuff like that, for these men and women to go. I think for what it's worth, there was somebody that said that Braun Strowman's NWA bound. This is my issue with this, man. And I'm going to start with Strowman. Strowman already kind of let the bad taste in the mouth of a lot of independent promotions when he shit on all the independent promotions when he first got released from WWE. Strowman going to NWA, I'm not going to ever say that, it never going to happen. I just don't think, personally, NWA has the financial resources to bring in someone like Braun Strowman in a contract situation. It can be paid by appearance. I don't see him signing a contract with Billy Corgan's NWA promotion. That's not me shitting on NWA. But this also goes back to what I had originally said about Bobby Lashley and the rumor of him going to NWA. I just don't think financially they have the resources right now to bring in a star like that. They're going to, ask for a lot of money, and rightfully so. They're already well-established talent, and talent that's already been at the pinnacle of pro wrestling with them working at WWE. So obviously they're going to ask for, I would say, a substantial amount of money. I just don't think Billy Corgan's NWA promotion can provide those financial resources to someone like a Braun Strowman or a Bobby Lashley. With that being said, never say never. But in my honest opinion, I just don't see it. I think Strowman, if we're looking at somebody like Strowman, if he wants to continue to wrestle, and some people are going to say, oh, go to AEW. No. If Strowman wants to continue wrestling, I would strongly consider putting Strowman in TNA, to be honest with you, and have him be the monster over in TNA. Tony Khan, with all due respect to AEW, they really don't know what to do with talent that are the size and stature of someone like a Braun Strowman, and it's been prevalent. Like he just doesn't know what to do with talent like that. So if Strowman does decide to continue wrestling and he doesn't go back to WWE or could call back, I could see him going to TNA. Dakota Kai, it's an interesting situation with Dakota Kai. I mean, honestly, sky's the limit. Excuse me, for Dakota Kai. I can see her going to TNA 100%. I can also see her going to AEW, to be honest with you. I think AEW would be a great fit for Dakota Kai, but I can see that in the same breath, TNA would also be a very suitable option for someone like Dakota Kai to really revamp a women's division. It's a great addition to any women's roster, whether it's TNA or AEW. I think those are the top two choices for me, for her. Cora Jade, again, I would say TNA. I think her going to TNA would be great for her, to be honest with you, and revamp that women's division. Not that it really needs to be revamped, but adding someone like Cora Jade to TNA, I think would be great, to be honest with you. Shayna Baszler. Shayna Baszler, for me, is the wild card. I can see Shayna going to AEW. I can also see her going to TNA. I know she has been working some GCW events with Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. Who knows? I don't know if GCW will sign her to a contract and she'll work exclusively with Josh Barnett. TNA. AEW might also be a suitable option for Shayna Baszler. The problem with Baszler is she's up there in age, man. I believe she's 43. So, it's going to be very telling to see what Shayna does in the future. A lot of people said the same thing about Sonya Deville when she got released. Where is she going to go next? Is it going to be TNA? And I think that's the best part about all of this, is that these men and women have opportunities to really flourish wherever they go and make their money. So for those that are like, oh, this is bullshit, yada, 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 bro, it's a business, man. At the end of the day, it's a business. We don't have to agree with it, but at the end of the day, it's a business. And, a lot of people are also pointing the finger at TKO. And I'm not going to sit here and say that TKO doesn't play a part in this. No, they do. And TKO, for what it's worth, might either be a good thing for WWE or might be a bad thing. This might be something where, for those talents that are seeking substantial amount of money for these contracts, it might not happen. If we're looking at the narrative, and there was a press release saying that some of these talents were released because of financial reasoning, maybe it's just too much money and TKO is not willing to fork out substantial amount of money to keep these talents on board, and that might benefit AEW when Tony Khan has an open checkbook to sign these talents. So, and then there's also that narrative where, okay, AEW is becoming, WWE's wasteland. Well, yeah. Because you had to ask yourself this, are you going to let a certain caliber talent go and not sign them just because they're a former WWE talent? No. If they could bring more spotlight to your product and bring in more revenue and more money and more eyes on your product, then obviously you're going to bring them in regardless of where they came from. So that whole narrative, people need to stop that shit, because I think that's a bunch of bullshit. You know what I mean? You look at someone like, oh, everybody was against Bobby Lashley, them coming in and all this. Oh, it's, here's another WWE guy. But look what Lashley and Shelton Benjamin and MVP are doing right now in AEW. They are the biggest thing right now in AEW. People love their theme song. They're immensely over right now. So it could benefit those certain WWE talents that got let go to go over to AEW and really reinvent themselves. So I'm all for that. And I think it's a great time right now, if you are a pro wrestler, to have options. You know what I mean? It's not just WWE. There's other players in town now, like TNA, AEW. You know what I mean? It's not just WWE and that's it. You made it to the show and goodbye. No. There's other opportunities for these men and women to seek employment, to really showcase their craft. And, I think, it sucks. It does. I'm not saying that, obviously losing your job is not the greatest thing in the world. But at the end of the day, it's a business, man. And, I guess they didn't really see, the reasoning to keep these certain talents, which, it's going to happen. It's happened before. It's going to continue to keep happening. And a lot of people, like I said, are going to point the finger towards TKO. And maybe TKO is at fault. A lot of things are going to change within WWE now that they signed with TKO. And that's just how it's going to happen. I think WrestleMania also played a part in that with TKO and The Rock. I think they completely fumbled this year's WrestleMania. And, if they're talking from a financial standpoint and not be able to afford these talents, then, those high-profile targets in free agency, man, they might not go to WWE, or WWE might not bring them in all the time. You know what I mean? They might bring them in and lowball them as far as financially is concerned, because they don't want to fork out all this amount of money for these talents, because maybe they don't see like the talent's worth that kind of money. So, you look at the AAA situation and the fact that, WWE started slowly signing people from AAA, and a lot of people were up in arms about the Alberto Del Rio situation. Me personally, I don't know enough information right now as far as giving you guys an idea of what's going on with Del Rio, but I will say this. If they bring in and sign someone like Alberto Del Rio and they bring him into WWE, this is going to be a huge problem. A problem across the board. A problem that WWE doesn't want, because it's going to have to be something that no matter what they do, it's not going to make the company look good, bringing someone in like Alberto Del Rio with all the issues and problems that he's had in the past and other promotions, and his personal issues that he has had. even with Saraya. So, like, I don't know if that's really going, if they're going to sign him or whatever, but I can guarantee you this. Those incidents and those things that have happened in his past are going to come back to haunt him, and it's going to be a serious situation with WWE if they, in fact, go ahead and sign him to a contract and bring him back into the fold of WWE. Yeah, it's going to be a big problem. It's going to be a huge issue. And I think a lot of people, even now, with not 100% knowing what's going on, are up in arms about it because they know the situation with Del Rio and his past. And it's not something where it's like, oh, you can just, turn the cheek on. No, it's something that you need to be aware of. And the fact that, like, yeah, it might have happened then, but even the stuff that he did then still resonates now. And it's a bad look for the company. It's bad press for WWE if they bring in someone like Del Rio with all the backstory that he has right now into the company. Because, and to be honest with you, from a business standpoint, it would be a slap in the face to WWE if they do that, and the fans. Because right now, what WWE's doing, they're red hot. They're the best company in the world right now as far as professional wrestling is concerned. They are a global brand. Pay-per-views across the world, everything else like that. And the money that they're making right now is ridiculous. So bringing in someone like that, like Del Rio, into the fold of WWE could cause them a lot of problems. Bad press, bad media. I don't know if TKO and WWE are willing to pull the trigger on bringing out Del Rio in, knowing that there's going to be severe backlash, no pun intended, of bringing someone in like Del Rio. You know what I mean? So it's still yet to be determined. I don't really know the specifics yet. I don't know if he in fact did sign a deal with them to stay on with AAA or whatever. Now that WWE has acquired AAA, and I believe Del Rio is the current AAA World Champion. So I don't know how this is going to work. The funny thing is too is Saraya had left AEW hoping to get called back to WWE. I don't know if that's really going to pan out for Saraya if WWE in fact does bring in someone like Del Rio with the history that Saraya has with Del Rio. So it's just not really a good look if they go that route. I'm not a big fan of it. But we're going to see. I know they signed other talents like Vikingo, La Parka to a contract. And I know they had that big show in June, I believe June 7th. They have the Worlds Collide event with the main roster, NXT, and AAA talent all under being one roof. I think it's at the Kia Forum on June 7th. It's the same day as Money in the Bank. So we're going to see how that plays out. I don't know if Del Rio is going to be a part of that show. I have no idea. But I can tell you this, man. I know that if they did, in fact, sign Del Rio, they are in for a shitstorm coming their way from a lot of fans and a lot of, fans that will be legitimately pissed off if they did bring in someone like Del Rio. But, and I'd be one of them. I would not be really thrilled with that. I think it would be a bunch of bullshit. I think it'd be a slap in the face to the fans. I just think it's a dumb business move to bring in someone like that into the fold with the backstory that he has. Just with him personally, I don't think it's worth it, man. It's not. So, but I don't know for sure if he is signed or not. If he did sign, it's a bad move from WWE, to be honest with you. And that could be something that could severely bite them in the ass, to be honest with you. But like I said, man, Monday Night Raw wasn't bad. I think the build towards Backlash has been very intriguing, more intriguing than I would say WrestleMania this year has been. I'm looking forward to Pat McAfee versus Gunther. It was also announced that Dominic Mysterio would defend the Intercontinental Championship against Penta. Definitely looking forward to that match as well. We have John Cena defending the Universal title against Randy Orton. Definitely looking forward to that match. I know Randy Orton's going to get a huge pop, being in the fact that Backlash this year is in Orton's hometown of St. Louis, Missouri. So it's going to be a great night. I think it's going to be a good card. I think it's going to be a lot of really good matches. And I'm definitely looking forward to it. And like I said, I think the build towards Backlash has better build than WrestleMania that happened this year, to be honest with you. And I'm definitely excited for this year's Backlash, and I think it's going to be a really good card. But and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great card, great matches, great main event, and definitely looking forward to it. But with that being said, this is my review of Monday Night Raw. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful and